Hi everyone. In this lecture, I'm going to introduce you to some of the topics that we're going to discuss during this semester in your Life of the Past class. It might seem sort of odd to start a lecture, or a semester for that matter, with a giant picture of a banana. However, I would like for you to pause for a moment and just think about your connection to the banana. You don't need to delve too deep or think about what I want you to say, but instead just take a note on your first thoughts as you saw the banana. So in the past, some students have said things like, "I'm hungry," or "Why are you torturing me?" And "I hate the texture or smell of the bananas," or "That banana is just the right or wrong shade of yellow for eating," or "I'm allergic to bananas." Right? Regardless of how you initially felt, my hope is that by the end of the semester, you'll have a deeper understanding of your connection to the banana and indeed all living things on Earth. But before we dig into that topic, I'm going to take some time to cover what paleontology is. There are many misconceptions about what paleontologists do. Most of them involve dinosaurs or Indiana Jones. While it is true that some paleontologists do study dinosaurs, the vast majority of us do not. In fact, paleontology is a vastly diverse field of science, which attempts to describe the history of life on Earth as it is in all its forms. There are many reasons we study fossils and evidence for life of the past. For example, sometimes we're just fascinated by the type of fossils recovered. In March 2011, a miner in Canada was using an excavator to remove a large portion of rock processed for tar to produce petroleum. As he dug through the material, he noticed something strange. What he uncovered was this 110-million-year-old nodosaur that's shown in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. If it were not for his keen eye and his fascination with nature, this perfectly preserved mummy would have been ground up with the rest of the tar sand for that day. Other paleontologists use the fossil record to help reconstruct what the Earth's climate was like in the past. This helps us to understand our changing climate today and what that might hold for us in the future. For example, the 50-million-year-old palm frond shown in this slide in the bottom center comes from southwest Wyoming. Palm trees are purely tropical plants, and this fossil find, along with fish, reptiles, rays, and all sorts of other tropical animals and plants, shows us that Wyoming was experiencing a tropical climate during that time period. I just spent the first 2 weeks of June in Wyoming, and it snowed almost as much as it didn't this year, so it definitely was not a tropical climate. We can also use fossils to piece together ancient geography, as well Alfred Wegener did when he proposed his concept of continental drift. We'll discuss that more in this class when we cover plate tectonics. We also use fossils to tell time. Because life is constantly evolving, and no two identical species have ever evolved twice, we can record the same types of fossils in a rock and know that any other rock that has that same fossil assemblage comes from the same time period. Now, this allowed geologists to produce the geologic time scale, which you will have an exercise on in the upcoming week. Lastly, but certainly not least, we can look to the fossil record to better understand ourselves as humans. The little boy in the image is my nephew, and I like to think he's getting a close-up view of our primate family tree. There are many persistent misconceptions about the evolution of humans, and my hope is that by the end of this semester that you should be able to have a better understanding of how the evolution of humans progressed. This image is commonly used to express our progress from lesser primate relatives to what is Chuck Norris, representing the pinnacle of human existence, apparently. However, there are many problems with the progression shown in this overly simplified graphic. It isn't that humans didn't evolve from other species of primates. The fossil record and genetic studies clearly show that we did. However, we did not evolve from chimpanzees, as shown in the image. Chimpanzees and humans just share a common ancestor. However, the chimpanzee on the left has evolved as a species for about 7 to 8 million years, exactly as the human species has evolved for about 7 to 8 million years, down different evolutionary pathways. We come from a population of primates that split to produce a multitude of species, of which Homo sapiens is one. So human evolution would be better represented by this family tree. The population that produced the chimpanzee family tree and the human family tree would be just below on the bottom of this image. So you can imagine a branch diverging to another slide containing a detailed family tree for the chimpanzees and other great apes. The human evolutionary tree is very diverse, contains a number of independent groups that existed for thousands to millions of years each, And at the end of the semester, we'll discuss a number of the important ancestors of the human family tree. But for this course, we need to dive down to the roots of the tree first so that we can look at the entire tree of life. So back to the banana. When I looked at the banana, first, I see food. Bananas aren't my favorite fruit, but I definitely won't turn one down. Unless it's brown, and then it's time to make some bread. But if we look closer, down to the molecular level, the banana would share a number of characteristics with us. For example, when we examine certain portions of DNA, we can compare how closely related humans are. Similarly, we can also study how closely related two species are by looking at shared portions of the genetic code. The more shared DNA there is, the more closely related those two species likely are. Not all genetic studies use the same portion of DNA to compare, so the percentages sometimes change depending on what sections they're comparing, but the pattern is always the same. And what we see is that the human population at the center of this image is surprisingly, worryingly, similar. That is, all 7 billion plus humans on the planet share about 99.9% of their DNA. That indicates that our species evolved from a pretty small population. Early in our species history, there may have been a group of around 5,000 or even less individuals. So there's more genetic diversity in a small group of chimpanzees in the Congo than there is in the entirety of the human race. Those chimpanzees, by the way, share about 98.8% of the same DNA as humans, making them our closest primate relative. This agrees with the fossil record, which shows that chimpanzees and human populations split, which had an ancestor about 7 to 8 million years ago. Gorillas are about 98.4% similarity, orangutans around 96.9%, and all of the great apes are separated by less than 4% differences in their DNA. All primates, including monkeys in that group, are around 93% similar. All mammals, illustrated by the little mouse up there on the top, are about 85% similarity. If you look at all terrestrial vertebrates, all four-legged animals walking around with a spine, then they share about 75% similarity, as indicated by the Aves group of chickens. And you and that banana tree are around 60% genetically similar. So that means that plants and animals diverged a couple billion years ago, but they, at that point, had a genetic code that was fully functioning and shared around 50 to 60% of their DNA. So this shared history of life is something that we'll dissect over the semester to see where certain traits and characteristics arose. For example, you might be listening to this lecture with the bones of your middle ear, which evolved from bones in an ancestor's jaw around 200 million years ago. If you're taking notes, and I hope that you are, then you're holding your pencil or pen with an opposable thumb that evolved in primates around 60 million years ago. If you walked anywhere today around campus or wherever it is you're taking this class, then you did so as a bipedal great ape, a trait that evolved in the grasslands of eastern Africa somewhere on the order of around 8 million years ago. All life on Earth is related. All life on Earth shares a history. There are some people who think this demeans and degrades humans. I like to take a different view, one that's shared by Charles Darwin, and to paraphrase him, there is grandeur in this view of life. From so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and most wonderful have been and are being evolved. So, I'll see you next time.